All right. Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for watching this recording. My name is Taylor Maher, and I am the Peace Corps recruiter of South Florida. I'm here with Dean Tobin. We are going to explain a little bit about Peace Corps and the Coverdell Fellows Program at the University of Miami. So again, my name is Taylor, and I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala from 2018 to 2020. I served in the agriculture work sector, and during my service, I became fluent in Spanish, and then also learned a third language, or a little bit at least of a third language, the indigenous mind language of Quiche. And just to jump in about Peace Corps, our main goal is to promote world peace and friendship by fulfilling these three goals: help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women. Number two, help promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served. And finally, help promote a better understanding of other peoples on the part of Americans. So to break this down just a little bit, that first bullet point is all about training and the technical work that you'll do in the field. So you will be paired up with work partners, and you'll do things like co-facilitate trainings and activities. It just depends on the work sector that you'll be placed into. And I'll talk a little bit more about work sectors in a few slides here. And the second and third bullet point are all about intercultural exchange. So how can you bring the culture and the life, the customs that you grew up with or that you experienced while living in the United States, and share that with your host families or your community members while you're in service? And on the flip side, how can you bring those customs and traditions from the countries and the communities that you live in during Peace Corps service and share that with your friends and family back in the United States? So some qualifications and statistics of the Peace Corps: you must be a US citizen and at least 18 years old to apply. But you technically do not need a degree, but it does make you a more competitive applicant. You can see there the statistic: 95% of volunteers have at least an undergraduate degree. So an associate's or a bachelor degree really does make you stand out a bit on the application and more competitive. About 90% of volunteers would recommend service again. Like I said, I was a volunteer and I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely go and serve again. I'm planning on doing it at some point later in life, which brings me to this other statistic that we have. Our age range is from 20 to 86. The oldest volunteer to date was 86 years old. There is no age cap. So if right now is not the time, you can definitely do it later on in life. And like I mentioned, there are six work sectors. We have agriculture, environment, youth and development, health, education, and community economic development. Each one has its own goals and objectives. For us in the agriculture work sector, we focused on the Ministry of Agriculture of Guatemala, their main goal, which was to reduce the amount of malnutrition in rural households. So they had smaller activities and trainings that they would give to community groups. And so we were their co-facilitators and co-organizers. But also as a Peace Corps volunteer, you really are a community connector. So, making those connections between you and your work partners and different organizations, or you and your work partners and other volunteers. For me, there were other health and education and youth and development volunteers nearby. So we collaborated on different projects. We would see each other at a lot of trainings and meetings. So we did do a lot of work together. So you can kind of dip your toes in the other work sectors if you have multiple interests. And that kind of leads me to the other point, which you see at the bottom here: secondary projects. These are activities that match your interest with a community need. So if you are an avid guitar player, or you love music, or you do yoga or something like that, and someone in your community has that same interest or wants to learn more about it, you can set up your own small project or have your own classes. So for example, I led English classes and Zumba classes with another volunteer in our community. Everybody was invited. It was a great way to meet more people and make more connections. And especially with Zumba, a great way to get physically active with multiple people in town. So it's a great way, like I said, another great way to make those connections for sure. And where you can serve. So we have not had volunteers in the field for the last 2 years because of the pandemic, But we are very excited to hopefully be sending volunteers out later this month of March. And we are going back to these regions that are stated here. So the Pacific Islands, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and Latin America. And there's two different ways that you can apply to serve in these regions. You can either apply directly to the country that you're interested in going to and the project, or that work sector that I just mentioned. And this is actually how I applied. So I knew that I wanted to go to a Spanish-speaking country and I wanted to go into agriculture. So on the Peace Corps website, I just put those filters in and it gave me 4 options to choose from. So 2 in Guatemala and 2 in Nicaragua, and I randomly chose Guatemala. You can also apply to serve where needed most. With this, you just send in your application to the Peace Corps placement team. They review it and they just match your experiences and background with the projects that we have available at that time. So really up to you. So benefits during service, they're all listed here, but I will touch a little bit on each of them. The living stipend, this is enough money for you to survive. So you're not receiving a salary, you're not really making money during Peace Corps, but you are receiving enough money, like I said, to survive. So you can pay your rent, that's kind of housing, the next bullet point there. And you do get enough money to pay for food, water, transportation, miscellaneous items. And you also get a lump sum of money at the very beginning when you're sent to your site to buy things like pillowcases, pillows, bedding, kitchen supplies, toiletries, things like that, just so that you can set up your living space and be comfortable. And then medical and dental coverage is provided. Peace Corps sets up your physicals and dental appointments for you during service, which is really great. Student loan deferment or cancellation. You'll apply for the deferment if you have student loans a few months before you are sent out for service. So just so that you don't have that responsibility when you're abroad. And most applications are approved because the loan providers understand that it is a government service. And then the vacation time, you do get 2 days per month along with weekends to plan whatever vacation or whatever activities you want to do during those months, or you can also save up those days and use them all at once at the very end, up to you. And career skills and training. So this picture on the left, that's actually me with my work partners in one of my communities, giving them information on how to be an effective trainer. And all of that training was given to me during Peace Corps pre-service training in the very beginning of service. So you take those skills with you after service, how to be a good public speaker, how to be flexible and adaptable. So those soft skills, right? And you can bring that into the career that you have after Peace Corps, which leads me to benefits after service. You do receive about $10,000 in transition funds. So when you return from service, you have a little bit of a cushion to readjust back into the life of the United States. And then graduate school benefits, which is what we will be talking about a little bit more here with Dean Tobin, but it is the Peace Corps Coverdell Fellows. And the next slide, I will give a little more information on that. So I'll move on to the next point, the professional networking and career services. So once you return from service, you're input into the Peace Corps portal as a returned Peace Corps volunteer. And we have over 240,000 return volunteers since the time that we started Peace Corps back in 1960. And so all of these return volunteers are in many different career paths, right? So you got the private sector, public sector, many different organizations and companies. So there's a lot of connections that you can make. And if you have questions or need advice, you can reach out to one of them and get the advice that you need for the career path that you may be on. And then federal employment advantages. This is NCE or non-competitive eligibility. This gives you a higher standing or higher status when applying to government jobs. This is actually what I used to get this position as a Peace Corps recruiter. So it kind of puts your application at the top of the stack and gives you a little bit higher preference when applying to those government positions. And then public service loan forgiveness. This is through any government work that you do after Peace Corps. So if you do 10 years of public service, you can get your loans forgiven, and your 2 years in Peace Corps will be added to that 10 years. So once you return, you'll just have to do 8 more. And then access to affordable health insurance. So you do get 3 months, just about 3 months of health insurance once you return from service, just so that you have a little bit of time to get situated and that's not kind of thrown at you right when you get home. And then talking a little bit more about graduate school. So this is a lifetime benefit. So the NCE, the non-competitive eligibility that I mentioned, that lasts for 1 year after returning from service. But the Paul D. Coverdell Fellows Program, this benefit lasts your entire life. So if you go right after Peace Corps service, that's great. But if you want to take a little bit of time and work for 3, 4, 5 years and then do a graduate program, you can apply it then as well. So this Fellows Program is present at over 100 universities nationwide with about 200 programs. So you just have to look on the Peace Corps website to see exactly what university and what program that you're interested in and to see if that program is available to match with the fellows. And you do get partial to full tuition coverage, and it's a great way to use your Peace Corps service in an applicable and impactful way. So to talk a little bit more specifically on the University of Miami program, I'm going to hand it over to Dean Tobin. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this recording. And thank you, Taylor, for inviting me. My name is Mary Ann Tobin. I'm Assistant Dean at the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Miami in Florida. And I'm thrilled to be sharing with you a little bit about our Master of Arts in International Administration program, or MAIA. Is the acronym that we love to use. MAIA is new to the Coverdell Fellows catalog. We were recently accepted last year as a Coverdell Fellows school and program, and we're absolutely thrilled. MAIA is a program that has a lot of Peace Corps history. We have Carol Bellamy, who was previously director of the Peace Corps, is a frequent contributor to our MAIA courses. And if you know a little bit about Peace Corps history, Donna Shalala, who was previously Secretary of Health and Human Services and was also a member of the US Congress, she was also the president of the University of Miami. So because of that influence, we were so honored to be selected as one of the new Coverdell Fellows programs. And I want to share a little bit about MAIA with all of you. MAIA is a 30 credit program. It takes 10 courses to complete. And if you attend full time, which we recommend if you're able, you can complete it in 1 calendar year, fall, spring, and summer. You could also start in the spring and go spring, summer, fall. But we do also offer part-time enrollment if you are working as well. So if you have a day job, don't worry. All of the classes in the MAIA program are offered evenings, online, or in the summer. We have a population within the program of working professionals, and we do our best to accommodate everyone's flexible needs within the program. Among that flexibility is our completion option. So at the end of the MAIA program, you have to do a practicum project, and you may choose to participate in an internship, do a project, or a research paper. But for Coverdell Fellows, we've actually identified specific internships that the Peace Corps has approved for you to finish out your program. So it's kind of nice. These are partner internships. You don't have to go on the hunt to find an internship. You'll have a sort of menu to choose from. And these are individual organizations that have already agreed to receive returned Peace Corps volunteers as interns. So it's a really nice partnership that we're happy to share. I encourage you to visit the MAIA website. It's maia.miami.edu. We have lots of information there, including news and events, which we hope you'll peruse and follow. And then we can also, if you go under the resources tab, there's a page that is specifically dedicated to interested Coverdell Fellows. The next slide is about Miami. So Miami is quite literally at the crossroads of the Americas. As I mentioned, the university in particular has an affinity with the Peace Corps and a very high level of respect for all returned Peace Corps volunteers. But we would also encourage you to consider Miami in general because it really is a mix of every culture you could possibly think of. I feel like takes place in Miami, and it's not only wonderful weather, but anywhere that you would need to travel to, or any kind of work that you would want to do in the community, Miami really does have a huge offering. If you're interested in environmental work, we are literally on ground zero for climate change. And we have communities, urban city centers, and rural parts of Miami that deal with trying to mitigate the effects of flooding, extreme weather, hurricanes, et cetera. So if that's something that you're interested in, there are projects available that deal with that. If you're interested in education, Miami's in the 4th largest school district in the United States, and there are elements of that we would encourage you to consider being involved in. So kind of tying into the service areas of the Peace Corps, Miami has places where you are needed and in all aspects of life in and around Miami. As I mentioned, MAIA itself is a very flexible program, flexible to meet your needs. If you want to be a full-time student and be in and out in a year, that's probably the more common path, but we can also accommodate you part-time if you find employment while you're here in Miami. And MAIA specifically looks to leverage your experience as a returned Peace Corps volunteer. We have classes that deal with risk assessment and evaluation because, as I mentioned, not only are we really dealing with the effects of climate change daily, sustainability and resilience, but we also have a huge human element. There's so many immigrant populations in Miami that we're constantly looking at elements of human security as well. Things like trafficking and other topics that are constantly at a threat to the health and safety of the people of Miami are dealt with in the MAIA program. The MAIA program is also as a program in international affairs. So there are classes on diplomacy and globalization, which you might find more common in an IR program. But as I mentioned, because it's specific to Miami, we have coursework on sustainability, and it's all in a sort of framework of organizational and operational leadership. So yes, more about why to consider Miami. So as I mentioned, we have these really fantastic exclusive Coverdell internships. The 3 partner organizations are the Refugee Assistance Alliance, Catalyst Miami, and the Community Justice Project. And they really provide 3 separate pathways for Coverdell fellows that are interested in doing a very diverse kind of catalog of work. The Refugee Assistance Alliance is actually co-founded by one of our MAIA alums. And what they do is they take refugee families from all over the world when they're brought to the United States, specifically to Miami. They are given 6 months of support, and the RAA provides the other 6 months of support to get them integrated into life in the United States. And part of that is everything from showing them how to access public transportation, the laundromat, getting their kids signed up for public school, to assisting them with classes in English. And it's a very active program. For the most part, more recently, they've had a lot of Syrian refugees, but they are expecting, aside from refugees from all over the world, they are expecting specific influxes from Eastern Europe, given what's happening over there. I just spoke to someone from the Refugee Assistance Alliance a couple of days ago, and she shared that. Catalyst Miami is a sort of Miami-wide nonprofit, and they help do nonprofit startups around the country, around the city, wherever there is a need. So they work with the educational system, they work with civil servants, they work with both the county and city governments to provide projects in all areas of need. And the Community Justice Project similarly works specifically with legal aid and the Public Defender's Office to do work if you're interested in potentially going to law school after this, or if you have a desire to work in the legal field, you might want to consider an internship with the Community Justice Project. And the concentrations within MAIA. So I mentioned it is a 1-year program. It's 7 core classes and 3 electives, but among the 3 electives, we ask that you consider a track and focus those elective credits on a specific subject area. Security management is probably our most popular I guess it's our largest concentration, and students walk away with both a MAIA degree and a certificate in security management. What do I mean by security? I don't just mean, like TSA agents, but those of you that are interested in Peace Corps service or return from Peace Corps service know that the term security is much broader than just immediate safety. It's about sustainable health. It's about planetary health, your own safety, and what does it mean to be a secure person in your environment. So with security management, there are courses on energy and sustainability, courses on trafficking, courses on disaster management, and courses on preparedness. So that's all part of the security management concentration. If you are more of a technical person and you're looking at maybe going into a data field, I would recommend you consider the certificate in geospatial technology. That is both a MAIA degree and a certificate specifically in ArcGIS. So anything that involves geomapping and targeting and Google Earth and other technical things that are way beyond me. But we have a lot of students that are interested in going into computer science, and they choose to pursue the geospatial technology track. Risk communication, health equity and human rights are other 2 popular tracks. Risk communication is offered with a partnership with the School of Communication, and then health equity and human rights is offered in partnership with our Global Health Studies program. It's just a foundation for electives that deal either with strategic communication before and after disasters or with issues related to global health. And the last concentration that's brand new, this is the first year that we're offering it, is on international crime and justice through a partnership with the Criminology and Criminal Justice program. And students will take the MAIA core and then take electives in sociology and criminology. We also offer an independent, so if this is not enough and you can't make up your mind, no worries. We offer an independent concentration option where you can look at the catalog of courses and basically propose your concentration of choice. We have a student now who is in the program and she has a specific interest in space law. She's going on to law school after she completes MAIA this spring. And she is particularly looking at satellite mitigation and how different countries work together to handle everything from space tourism to the disposal of space junk, which is a growing field in the legal profession. So she's doing an independent concentration in space law. Admissions, specific, as Taylor mentioned, to your ongoing lifetime benefit of being a Coverdell Fellow. We have tuition support and the admissions process. The application fee of $85 is waived for Coverdell Fellows. So when you apply, if you're interested, I suggest reaching out to me. My email will be in a couple of slides. You can reach out to me directly and I'll provide you a waiver code to make it so that there's no application fee. But then we do ask for a statement of purpose, 3 letters of recommendation, official transcripts from all of the post-secondary institutions that you have attended. So if you have a bachelor's degree already, your transcripts from that and any other courses that you might have taken at a college or university, and your resume. There is no GRE required for this program. There are no pre-testing needs to get into MAIA. And the tuition support that's probably the most important that you're hearing is it is a 50% tuition waiver. So whether you take MAIA as a 1-year program or you are on the part-time track, we're offering approximately $35,000 in tuition assistance, and that accounts for 50% of the tuition for UM is a private school. It's among the top 50 universities in the country. We are a Carnegie Research One institution, and you have access to all of the facilities and resources at Even though some classes are online, as I mentioned, for flexibility, it is a residential program, which means that classes are held on our beautiful campus in Coral Gables, everything from the library to football games, to all of the student activities that are available for any student are available to you as part of this program. I think the next is my email. So I'm also an alum of the University of Miami, if you can't tell when I start to gush about how much I think it's a wonderful institution. So you can email me anytime and ask me any questions about the graduate school experience, the MAIA program specifically, what it's like to live in Miami. If I don't know the answer to your question, I will gladly get it for you or point you in the right direction of an office that can assist. But we are really excited about this opportunity, and we hope you will consider the University of Miami. We would absolutely love to have your application come in, and please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Dean Tobin.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Taylor.
Yes, and I just want to say this is my contact information as well. If you have questions about the Peace Corps, about my experience, or how to apply when you're ready to apply for the Peace Corps, please let me know. That is my email address and phone number. We can set up a time to chat. But again, thank you so much, Dean Tobin, and everyone have a wonderful day.